Welcome to Flutter Workshop. I'm Sai Ankit, 2019 student majoring in Electronics and Communication Engineering. So let's start with Flutter. I'll give you a brief introduction to what is Flutter, and then we can jump into the coding session. So Flutter is Google's UI toolkit for building beautiful natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop from a single code base. So this is what is mentioned on the Flutter website. You guys might also have seen it, and that is exactly what Flutter does. With a single code base, we can write the complete code, and when we are ready, we can compile it to the platform specific code. Like we can compile the Flutter app to Java or Kotlin for Android, and Swift for iOS platform, and the specific platform for the desktop. And we can release it to their respective Play Store or App Store, right? Flutter is also available for website development, but it is still in the beta stage where not all the plugins and dependencies are available that are available for Android and iOS. Like we are expecting the Flutter Web to release a stable version anytime soon. This will revolutionize the development experience because with a single code base, we can build the application for website, and we can also have an Android app and iOS app where all the three will work the same and look and feel the same. Uh, but nevertheless, the native languages will never die, like the Kotlin or Swift, because there are some situations where you need to tinker with the platform specific codes. Like for example, if you want to enable push notifications or camera permissions for a Flutter app, you need to go into the Android or iOS folder. I'll show you the project structure for Flutter later, then you'll understand it. And you need to tinker with the info.plist file or the Android manifest.xml file. Like those two are the only files that are in our view in the whole native code base. Like the native code isn't going to die soon, neither Flutter, both will go simultaneously, right? So going further to the, like there are also, this is basically a cross-platform development kit. There are also other cross-platform development kits like React Native or Xamarin, which have their own pros and cons, but Flutter is very good in my aspect. So Flutter is known for its beautiful UI. We can develop beautiful UI without missing out on the functional aspect at very ease. You can also read through the Flutter website to understand its pros. Like they don't mention their cons, right? So the cons would be to, you need to tinker with the native code, and there are some restrictions to Flutter when it goes into some machine learning specific things. And and also Flutter is also known for its stateful hot reload, which I'll demonstrate when we jump into the coding session, where basically we can write the code and then save the file, and then we can see the app to update within seconds, or as mentioned on the website, milliseconds. And it updates, and we can have a great development experience because what you write on the code is clearly visible on the emulator or simulator. Like it performs, it gives a huge productivity to the developer also. And Flutter is also very successful because we can control each pixel on the screen, not like the React Native, where React Native, there's a bridge between the React Native app and the native app that is running on the mobile. But in Flutter, the code is directly compiled into the native code. So it has a huge high performance as compared to the React Native counterpart. Right. So jumping into the most important thing of Flutter, the widgets. Widgets are basically the building blocks of any Flutter application. These are the visual representation of application. What you see on the screen on a Flutter app is a widget. Everything that are put as a blocks are widgets. Many widget blocks are put together to form the UI of the complete application. UI generally means the user interface, right? Everything in Flutter is a widget. This is basically inherited or inspired from the React components. If you have attended the React workshop, you would have known the React components, which are like tiny building blocks for React, where you can reuse them with variables, and we can also manage the state in there. It is inspired from React components only, but named widgets in Flutter. And everything in Flutter has to be thought as widgets. The button, the text, the checkbox, the app itself, everything is widget. When you look at anything on the screen, you got to imagine everything in terms of widgets. Widgets of the whole app is represented in the form of a tree known as a widget tree, where each node of a tree is a widget. Like every node that you draw for a widget tree would be a widget. Let's look at a mock app just to understand what are widgets and what are the widgets involved in that app and how the widget tree of that app is being rendered. So this is the mock app, and there's a text at the top with hello label, and there's an avatar of a person, and beneath it it's a image widget, and bottom is a button widget with a label login on it, right? Since we know that everything in Flutter is a widget, let's look at the widget tree. So the main widget upon which the complete application is rendered or built is the material app widget. The material app widget and the scaffold widgets both provide material design components so that we can access them from the Flutter app. Scaffold basically implements all these basic structure for the material design with multiple material design components such as app bar, bottom nav bar, tab bar, drawer, etc. These are the basic material design components that we can use out of box from the Flutter when we use the material app widget and the scaffold widget, right? And when you observe the application, the orange thing that I've drawn on the left hand side on the mockup is basically a combination of material app and scaffold. The whole app is the material app and scaffold. It has a child known as a column widget, which arranges its children, that is the nodes beneath the column widget, into a column like structure. So the different children for the column widget are a row, image, and a button. And row also contains children, which are the text and avatar widget. You can see the yellow part that I highlighted. That is basically the row widget. You can also have you can basically have a row widget or not have, like in colored form. But I just demonstrated here for understanding purposes. And when we look at the pseudocode, for this, with all the widgets mentioned in a hierarchical order, it looks something like this, where the material app is on the top and it has a child, which is scaffold widget, and it has another child known as column. It has children, which is row, image, and button. And row also has children, that is text and the avatar widget. Right. Avatar widget can also be gone deep into, like avatar widget can also have a child beneath it which has a container in circular form, and the container has also another child which is the image widget at the core. Okay. Before moving further with the discussion about widgets, I'll just run you through the method to create a Flutter project, because creation of Flutter project and starting of your emulators might take a little time. So we'll make it start now and let it run on the background, where we'll be in the meantime we'll discuss about widgets, right? So you can create a Flutter application using Android Studio or VS Code, or using a terminal and then opening it via VS Code. I generally do not prefer Android Studio because it eats up a lot of RAM, and I personally do not like the coding experience on Android Studio. And my preferred code editor is Visual Studio Code. But if you are comfortable with Android Studio, you can go through it, right? For creating, so this renders into a Flutter app. This is what I want to show. Right. When you open the Android Studio, you get a dialog box like this with create new project and create new Flutter project. Before that, I already mentioned in the Facebook post to download the Flutter SDK, download the Android Studio, and all the required things that are mentioned in the flutter.io website. So when you click the create new Flutter project, it takes you to a screen like this, where you can select a Flutter application or plugin or package or module. Since you are working with our basic stuff, we are only building a basic Flutter app. So click on Flutter application and hit next. This brings you to the configuration screen, where you need to enter your project name and a description for your project, which explains what your project does. And the Flutter SDK path would be automatically recognized by the Android Studio, the place where you downloaded the Flutter SDK. and the project location would be where your current Flutter project would be stored. You can always change your project location, project name, and description, but do not change the Flutter SDK path manually unless and until the Android Studio wala Flutter SDK path is not working, right? And after filling the details, hit next, and you can set the package name. Package name is basically a unique ID for your Flutter application. When you publish it to the Play Store or App Store, you need to have a unique signature, and for that you need to have a unique package name. You can leave it for now with this com.example.your project name, and enable the checkboxes for Kotlin support and Swift support. We are enabling this because when we want to tinker with the native code, we can also look into the native code. This is why Android Studio has provided that thing for us. If we do not want to tinker and it's a basic application, you can leave it unchecked, but it's always better to keep them checked. You can also change your package name to something, your name in between and some unique ID, so that it doesn't clash with already existing application. And on hitting next, the Flutter project would be created. It takes a little time to create your Flutter project on the first go, be it 2 to 3 minutes, but stay patient if you're creating it for the first time. And after creating, you will be taken to this screen. I know you cannot follow me along, but this is just a 2 slides apart where I'll show you how to open your simulator. On the top, you can see a no devices option there. It's a drop down, and on clicking it, you can see if you're using a Mac, you'll also see an open iOS simulator. If you're running Windows, you can only see open Android emulator or create a new Android emulator. If that's create new Android emulator, create a new Android emulator, and you can select any device you want. Um, and then after clicking open Android emulator or iOS emulator, your device starts up. So this process might take a little time and might also hang your device a little. It might take maybe 5 to 10 minutes depending on the RAM of your computer. Um, so start it now so that when we discuss the whole widget stuff, you can directly go into that and run your application, and we can code side along. Right. And also one thing I want to mention, if your computer has a little RAM and it's not supporting both Android Studio and the emulator, you can use Visual Studio Code and the emulator. And if emulator is not working perfectly fine on your computer because it has a less RAM, you can connect your own mobile phone to your laptop or PC, and then you can enable debugging options and debug USB debugging and developer options so that you can run your app directly on your mobile. You can just Google it how to enable the developer options, and you can find the procedure for it. And let me also run through the procedure for VS Code. So open a blank VS Code and click Control Shift P or Command Shift P, and you can see a term. You can see a search box like this, and just enter Flutter, and you can see these drop down items, and click on New Application Project, because you're building an application, not a module project, package or plugin. As you have seen in the Android Studio, it was a step-by-step procedure. In Visual Studio Code, it will be in form of this drop-down. After clicking New Application Project, it will ask you where your project should store, just like your Android Studio. Select a place, and then it will ask you the name for your project. Enter your project name, and then it creates your Flutter project in a little time. It might take 2 to 3 minutes. Visual Studio Code by default enables the iOS language Swift and Android language Kotlin support for your Flutter project, and it has already created the Android and iOS folders on the left-hand side. After your Flutter app is created, you can see all done on your output screen, right? And after open your main.dart file in the library folder, and you can see a no device at the bottom. On hitting no device, you can see a drop down just like your Android Studio, and you can select the Pixel 3a, that's your Android emulator, or iOS emulator if you're running a Mac, or you can create your own Android emulator again from scratch. Let me also show you the third procedure, which would be using the terminal. You can open your terminal and then cd into the directory you want to store your project. If you're using a terminal, that means you have a little knowledge about the Linux commands and stuff. So you can cd into folder you want, and then you can just click Flutter, create, and then application name, my app. That's it. After hitting enter, your Flutter app would be created. This is how simple it is when you're using a terminal. And if you want to use the GUI methods for Visual Studio Code and Android Studio, it'll take a little time. So in terminal, my application has been created in 5.5 seconds. That was for Flutter PubKit. So it'll show you completed and take you to your new line, which means your project has been created. Yeah, this is what it says. The whole thing is completed, and the terminal version also it also runs the Flutter Doctor, which you have known when you create your stuff. And one device is connected. That means I have already started my iOS simulator so that it doesn't take too much time in the workshop. You should have installed all the VS Code plugins and Android Studio plugins mentioned on the website.
Okay,
If
okay.
not, I'll show you the plugins that you need to install. So this is the extension that you need to install on VS Code for enabling the Flutter stuff. Flutter, and you can also install this something called Awesome Flutter Snippets by Nivesh. This enables us to use some snippets that I'll show you later. And you should also install something called Dart extension, this thing, for VS Code. Okay, so let me go back and explain what are the different types of widgets in Flutter before anything. So there are two types of widgets in Flutter. One is a stateful widget and another one is a stateless widget. If you have already attended the React workshop, these names would already be known to you. If not, stateful widget, basically state is nothing but some data that's being stored on the application. And when that state changes, if that particular widget rebuilds itself, then it's called a stateful widget. And if the widget that we are talking does not persist any state, and because it's not persisting any state and there's no rebuilding upon changing, that's known as a stateless widget. Stateless widget basically means it does not have any state. Even though if it has a state, it does not rebuild upon any changes. It's known as a stateless widget. uh, so on the left hand, it's a stateless widget, which basically only inherits the data and shows you on the screen. It is basically used for all the UI things, such as if you want to show any container which is in a rectangular shape with a rounded edges and you have a particular color to it. So mentioning all this in a particular widget, this will be a stateless widget because this doesn't have a state. But if you want to show something like a calculator response, the calculator total response that changes every time when you click the is equal to button, right? So that's a stateful widget where on every change the widget rebuilds as shown on the right hand side. There's a stateful widget and it also has a widget state, and there's an event which is called the state change event, which changes the widget state. And on changing the widget state, both the variable that is also known as the state changes, and also this particular stateful widget rebuilds itself on the screen so that it has to accommodate the new value for the new state. Let me show you with an example so that you'll get clear knowledge. So this would be the basic application that Flutter will give you out of the box, and the plus button would be the something called a state change event. On clicking it, the state changes. The state would be the number that's shown up, that is 3, 4, 5. On clicking it, the state changes and the number increments. The same example I'll show you. So this is a mock app where on the top it's a stateless widget and on the bottom we have a stateful widget. Both are similar looking containers, but one is a stateless and one is a stateful widget. You also have a state variable known as num, and it has already a number initialized with 1. And you also have a button at the center which corresponds to the state change event. And on clicking the add button, there's a function involved which increments the state num plus plus, right? So on hitting the add button, what happens is the stateful widget basically reloads itself, and it shows you a new number, that is new state 2, whereas the stateless widget doesn't do anything. It remains at the same place when it was initialized. It does not rebuild itself. And on hitting add again, the stateful widget rebuilds and it shows you a new number on the screen. This is what basically the difference between a stateful widget and a stateless widget. So for any functional usage, you will be using a stateful widget, and for regular decoration UI purposes, you will be using a stateless widget. You can also see in this screen in the app that you created in the main.dart. Initially, let me just remove all the comments because this is just to explain the application. This is of no use. This is a good comment. This basically means this trailing comma after every child that you mention will make auto formatting nicer for build methods. Okay, this would be really useful. Always make sure to add a comma at the end. So let me show you an example. If you do not add a comma, let's just say here, and then if you save it, the both widgets closing and the columns closing are on the same line, which makes it difficult for you to understand. So adding a comma will make the formatting easier on VS Code or Android Studio. So this is how your main.dart file looks after cleaning everything. Before going into the file, let me explain you the project structure first. So there is this Android folder and iOS folder. Once you complete your Flutter application and build your project, the iOS folder contains all the required code for your iOS specific platform, and Android contains the Android stuff. Once you open Android, you will be seeing all the stuff that you will be seeing when you open a Kotlin project. Okay, so this is how exactly everything looks like. You can you'll have the Kotlin files, main activity.kt, Android manifest.xml. If you have attended the Android workshop, like these might be familiar to you. So only stuff that we need to ensure when we'll be publishing our app would be something called build.gradle file, and maybe gradle.properties file or something like that. Nothing more. Will not tinker with any native codes. And for also iOS, you'll have to open the runner and you'll tinker with the info.plist, where all the platform specific permissions are basically in this file. So other files you'll be not tinkering with. So these are the two folders that you'll see in a Flutter project. And then comes the lib folder, which is basically everything that you write for a Flutter app. Every code on .dart will lie in this library folder. And Dart is the language used to write Flutter code. Uh, you are not expected to know Dart. Once you learn Flutter, you'll automatically learn Dart sideways. It looks similar to JavaScript, but it's object oriented, so it's Java kind of, and it also has C++ properties. So it is a mix of all languages, but you don't need to know the actual language to build the Flutter project. There's also this test folder. It also has test.dart files. This is basically used to test our application. After finishing our application, you can write some uh, pre-assumed scripts that your application has to behave like this. And when you run the test, if the test pass, then your application is running fine as per your required things. Git ignore will be for those who have already had Git initialized on their PC. So git ignore will contain all the files that Git has to ignore when committing to the GitHub, and all the other stuff that are not of great importance. Like wait, pubspec.yaml is of great importance to us. This is uh, this is where basically all we list all the dependencies for the Flutter app. You'll also define the assets if you're using Flutter app. Like if you're using an image, then you will mention it here. You need to uncomment this, and then you can mention where your assets lie. You can create a new folder called assets, and you can mention that folder here. For this workshop, we aren't using any essence, so we're not uncommenting it. And you can also create your own font. You can download the TTF from the Google Fonts online, and you can use some fonts that you want to use, and you can also mention which font that you need to use for weight 700 or style italic and all the stuff. So this is basically all the places you need to customize your Flutter app. It also has dependencies where you'll be adding all the dependencies that you'll be needing for Flutter app. We'll also be adding a dependency in this workshop to understand the state management. And this is the name of your app description. And after every time after you change something, you need to save the file so that Flutter pub get would be running using the Dart extension. You can see this is run by the Dart extension. Fine. So yeah, so in the main.dart file, you can see two types of widgets, stateless widget and stateful widget. Why is this a stateless widget? Because it has nothing to do with any state. It's just mentioning that you need to use a primary color as colors.blue and the visual density something and title for your app and title for your material app and something like that. This has nothing to do with state, right? So this is what a stateless widget will do. Whereas in a stateful widget, there's a state called counter, and on hitting the increment counter is basically the state function that we have discussed. On this is the floating action button widget, and on pressing the floating action button, this increment counter function has to run. So what does this increment counter do? This will set state to this counter plus plus. So this is basically where the after set state, the widget gets rebuilt. This whole my home page stateful widget gets rebuilt on every action of increment counter function. So this is how the Google already incorporated both stateful and stateless widgets for us. For now, we aren't implementing any counter widget, so you can delete all the code here, and you can also delete all the code here. So main function is basically the function that runs preliminary when your app gets run, right? So a run app is also a function already existing in Flutter SDK, which tells the mobile to run this application. So what is that application that we have to mention in its parenthesis? My app is a widget. Okay, so we need to create a widget first. That's the reason showing a red mark there. So we'll create a widget. You can just type in stls, and the snippets for Flutter extension will show you Flutter stateless widget. On clicking enter, it will create a basic scaffold for it, and you can just write down my app. You can also name it anything you want, and you can change it. So basically what does this mean is, on running of main function, a run app function runs, and run app function takes in a widget as an argument. That widget is this my app widget. So for the app to run, as I've mentioned earlier, they need to be the main head node of tree, which is the material app widget, right? So just hit in material app, and inside the material app, there will be a child for it. The child is known as home for the material app. Home is basically the attribute that mentions the child for the material app. In that, you can mention something like scaffold, which basically enables us to have all the types of material design components. So the first material design component that we'll be using is app bar. Hit on app bar and then just write down app bar. So this will initialize an app bar in our project. So let's just check it. So to run your application, once you have connected to a device, or emulator or a simulator, you can see it at the beneath. And then after you write a basic code, you can just click on run, and then click on run without debugging, or else you can click here, which means run without run without debugging, this play button on the left side. So I'll just start run without debugging. So you can see here what is happening from the Flutter application. It is launching. It is launching the library slash main.dat on iPhone 10, 12 Pro Max in debug mode. After launching, it will create the iOS specific code. It will compile into the native specific code. The first time run of a Flutter project might take 5 to 6 minutes for you, because it's the first time. I've already done a lot of Flutter on my device, so it will be fast. So it will show you a running Xcode build, which will build an Xcode project for our application. and it will also start building the platform specific code in the iOS folder. I know it'll take a little time, but you need to be patient with the stuff because it's the first time. My fans are already started making sound. It's 7,200 RPM. So it'll take time when you run the Flutter app for the first time. It'll also heat up your machine. Don't worry, it'll run your fans to the higher level because it's basically compiling the whole application into native code. So don't get tense with that. After your Flutter app is built completely, the fan speed and also the temperature will be completed. So Xcode build is done in 54.9 seconds. It'll be a little more for you. So you understood the difference between stateless widget and stateful widget, right? And also don't go into this. What is this? Is basically import. Import is nothing but to you'll import something in C, right? Hash include stdio.h. It's something like that. You are importing the Flutter code. This is the Flutter code for material design components. So the Flutter app is ready. Now I'll show you what the stateful hot reload looks like. So app bar is already created. This is the app bar, which is in blue color. Flutter default color is colors.blue. So everything you see will be blue in color by default. This is the app bar that is created by this scaffold widget. And now I'll show you what a stateful widget looks like. In the app bar, there's a child for it known as title. Title also takes in a widget as a param. And then for a title, there's a text widget and just write down e-commerce. We are going to build a e-commerce app now. See, I just saved my file and then I can see my e-commerce here. This is what is known as stateful hot reload in Flutter. Right. So you can also change the color for the app bar. You can just go into app bar widget and then click on background color and you can hit on colors dot red. It'll change within seconds. Just if you save, it'll change in the milliseconds will also be given 317 milliseconds. It will be reloading. Right. You can also change the red to green and then you can see everything. So this is the biggest plus point of Flutter. You can just tinker with the UI that you want to build and you can build at great ease. This will increase a lot of productivity for you, right? You can see everything that's going on right next to you. Yeah. So this is the app bar. Then what is the stuff known as here? This is the body of the scaffold. Inside the body you can place anything. So let me give you a brief introduction on what we are going to build today. So we are going to build a basic e-commerce Wala app wherein you will have a 5 to 6 products here, and on clicking the plus button it will be added to your shopping cart. And when you click your shopping cart button, which I'll keep it here, you can see all the items that you added to your cart list, right? So using this website you'll understand how to manage the state of your application and stuff. So first of all we'll just create two screens. Everything, the layout interface in Flutter is are known as screens. So the first screen would be item screen, the first screen that you see on your page. Let's leave the my app aside for some time. uh, Come a little beneath and just click stateful. Okay, stateful widget, and write down item screen. So this is the name of the first widget you're creating, this first screen widget. And also make sure, if you're not sure whether to use a stateful widget or stateless widget for a particular widget that you want to build, directly use a stateful widget. There's no harm in using stateful widget for where there's no thing happening. It doesn't rebuild if you're not changing the state, so it's fine for us, right? And you need to create a shopping cart screen. As I told you, when you click on the shopping cart button, you have to navigate to the shopping cart screen. So just type in again STTFUL, and on hitting enter, write down cart screen, right? These are basically the two screens that you're gonna work with. Item screen lists all the items in the shop. Okay, and cart screen basically shows view the items that shopping bag, right? So card screen will show you something like that. So let me remove this my app. So my app will run a material app. From scaffold, we'll build the we'll use the item screen and card screen. So let me delete something until here scaffold. And as a child for the material app in the home attribute, let me include the item screen, right? Items screen, and then comma for the proper formatting. This is black in color because in item screen, I'm only initializing a container. So a container is by default black in color and there's no scaffold, right? So everything will be in black in color. So in item screen, I'll be returning a scaffold here. So, so you're understanding how the process is going, right? Material app has a child known as item screen, and item screen is returning a scaffold, which indirectly means material app has a child called scaffold. And inside scaffold, let me initialize an app bar again, which which has a title and there's a text widget. Open and then write down something like item screen for us to know which is an item screen and not. Okay. Always add the comma after everything so that it'll auto format it for you. And you can always see a ribbon here known as the debug ribbon, which means you're running in debug mode. We can also remove it. You can go into the material app and then you can write in debug and it'll show you a attribute debug show check mode banner, and you can write down false. False basically means to not show the debug banner. uh, this has to be enabled when you are building your app to production, that is when you are pushing it to the play store. I generally do not prefer to have the debug mode when you are also running on debug mode because it doesn't look good when you are coding, right? So that's the reason I always enable the false. So let me also create a scaffold for the cart screen, and inside the scaffold let me add a app bar for it. And inside the app bar, let me add a title which has a text known as shopping cart. And let me add a comma right there. Oh, wait. Right. So for this my app, item screen is being showed. If we want to show the cart screen, we can just show cart screen. And within seconds, it will change into shopping cart, which is basically means this cart screen is acting as a child for this material app. Initially, I'll keep it item screen only. And in item screen, I told you there will be an button here, which basically takes us to the next screen, right? So in app bar, there's also another attribute known as actions, which is basically all the widgets that you can add on the app bar from the right hand corner. If you wanna add something from the left hand corner, it will be leading. Okay, leading would be a single widget. Okay, since we are adding a shopping cart on the right hand side, we'll be using a actions widget. So actions attribute. On clicking actions, it will open a array kind of thing, which means you can have multiple action widgets on your right hand side. So the first widget would be an icon that shows a shopping cart, and on clicking it, will take you to the next screen. So since it will be a button kind of thing to go into the next screen, I'll just write down icon button, and on clicking enter, this will come up. Wait, let me remove all the stuff so that no error comes up. And in icon button, why is this error coming? Because icon button should always have a icon and on pressed thing. Icon is basically what it has to show. So icon would be an icon, and the child for an icon would be icons dot what you want to show, that is shopping cart, right? Shopping cart. So you can follow me along, and if you don't have the icon, everything will go error, and once you add icon, it will be error free. And this you can't click because, and you also can't see the animation because on pressed has not been added. So inside the icon button, we'll write down on pressed, and it has to be a function. So I'll open a parenthesis for the this thing, and this will be a button on pressed. So now it will be a button which can be clicked, but nothing is happening because we haven't written any function here, right? So nothing will happen, obviously. Uh, so I need to, so basically we need, once on clicking this, we need to go into the this card screen. So you need to know one thing, everything in Flutter, the screens are stored in terms of stacks. Okay. So in stack, the first screen that is pushed into is the item screen. And once we're on clicking this, we have to push the card screen upon the item screen. So there is a function for that. And let me write down, you can also copy this side along. There's this navigator dot push, which basically means to push a screen into the navigator. Navigator is nothing but the list of all the screens the Flutter has. Navigator dot push, and we have to mention context. Context is basically a context is a variable that uniquely identifies each widget. So we are using a widget build context is because once you do a stateful reload, the state changes. Which particular widget has to be rebuilt, the Flutter has to know. So context is that particular variable which uniquely identifies that particular widget, which has to update on clicking context, on clicking that state change wala thing. The first parameter would be context, and in the next line, add down material page route. This is a function which basically enables you to move into the next route. So all these stuff that I'm telling in the workshop would cover most of the important concepts of Flutter. This you might not have seen. This you might not see in other basic beginner Flutter tutorials, because they teach you everything from piece to piece. But I'm all saying in a single video so that you get everything from this and you can practice it on your own. And inside this material page route, you might not understand what everything means now, but it will take you a little time. It took me a little time to understand what is a build context, like around 2 to 3 weeks after I started Flutter. So just work with it. You'll generally not know what you are writing in the C program in the beginning also, right? What is stdio.h and stuff. So it'll take a little time. Write down the builder parameter, and then you need to mention the function again. You need to write down the context here, add an arrow here. So don't worry about the arrow if it looks different on your device. It looks like this something on your device, but I have enabled font ligatures on my VS Code, so it looks something like this. And then open the braces, and then write down the screen that you want to move in. That is cart screen. Okay, so let me also add commas so that, let me share this function on the chat screen so that if anyone are not able to use it, you can just copy it. Okay, this function has to be there. You wait, there's something missing here. Oh wait, oh, navigator.push context. Okay, so there's no need of a braces here. Okay, just copy it again. So let's just check if this is working or not. On clicking this button, we are taken into the start screen, and on clicking this back button, automatically comes using the scaffold widget. Scaffold widget brings down all the material design components, as I've told you. So this leading button automatically comes in, and clicking it, it will go into the back screen. And on clicking this, we are taking it to shopping cart. And on clicking this, what happens is known as a navigator.pop. Navigator.pop means this is a push, which means a screen is being pushed into the navigator stack, and pop means the particular screen is being popped out of the navigator screen's stack, popped, and again we are pushing it and popping it out, right? So this is working. So we have to build the items on the screen. So let's go into the this is the app bar, right? App bar ends here. And after app bar ends here, I told you if this is a scaffold, this is app bar, everything beneath this is a body. So just write down body, and let's just show something. So let's just show a text widget in the body, which means body of items screen, and I'll just save it. It shows here, right? This is all the body, and this is shown in the body. So let me show you how to build an item for a this thing. Okay, for our item screen. So let me use a widget known as container. Container is basically any widget that enables us to have a clear predefined height and width and what color it is to be. I'll just show you. We can define a height that is 20 units, and then width also 30 units, and then we can also add a color to it, something like colors dot red, which basically creates a small container here, right? So container is something where we can play with its height, width, color, and also something like border, radius, and something like that. Okay, so let me add a decoration, which will be a box decoration. And inside this box decoration, let me add a color. So color would be colors dot red. Okay, I'm adding red so that it will be easy for us to see it. And we can, as I've told you, we can also change the border radius, but you won't be seeing it. So let me increase the height and width of the container. Okay, so inside the box decoration, let me add something known as border radius dot circular, and let me add something, a radius that has to be there 50. So this is how the border radius is changed. Let me know if I'm going a little fast, or I need to stop somewhere so that you can copy the code or take a screenshot of something. Okay. So this is the container for our item. Let me use a little small container for our item. Width would be something like 400. Okay. So let me add an item here. So for a container, there's also a child for container, and let's name it text. Text would be apple. Apple is our item name. It shows here because the container would be a square box, and just it's there in the cutted edge of the border. So what we'll do is we'll just so the useful of VS Code or the Android Studio extensions are, you'll be seeing a think icon like this, and on clicking a widget and hitting the think icon, we can wrap that particular widget with another widget. So if I wrap this text widget with center, a center widget comes up, and it wraps the text widget. So what happens is this center widget brings its child text widget to the center of its parent widget. The parent widget for the center widget is container, right? So it brings this text to the center of the container. So this is how it works. Yeah. So any doubts, or should I stop somewhere? And we can also style the text. You can add a style for the text widget and add text style, and you can change the color because that's not evident in the red. Colors dot white would be clear, I guess. And then you can also increase the size of the thing, font size. Let's make it 20. uh, 30 would be okay. 30 is perceivable, like it's really huge, but okay. In this way, you can also make it bold, which would be font weight, and you can also write down font weight dot bold, which makes the thing bolder, or italicized, or underlined, or something like it. You can style up on your wish. So Flutter is known for this UI. You can try out different UI, and you can see the result on the right hand side, right? So it's really useful. So let me run a little faster so that we can create the stateful management also. Um, So let me add a button to this container. So for adding a button to the container, we have assumed everything to be in a row, right? So Apple would be in a single row, and the button will also be in the same row. So in the container, in the center will have a another child, which is a row widget, and row widget has a two children, which is a text and an icon button again. So let me wrap this text widget again with a row. This is the useful of Flutter. We can easily wrap things up and we can make things work. You can always remove the center widget now. So you can click on the widget and hit on remove this widget. So this is how easy it is to work with Flutter. Right. After the text widget, let me add an icon button, which has an icon. You know the drill. You need to write down icon, and inside it icons dot add. Right. Add would be a proper icon, which shows you something like this. And on pressed, let just until now let's just be a normal thing. So it doesn't work now, obviously. And icon dot add. If you don't like the color, you can just add on style for it, also known as color. Colors. Oh wait, colors dot white. And wait, I have closed the parenthesis. So this has made a white button for it. Now this is how the icon button is made. So we wanted this Apple and plus button to be at the right hand corner and this to the left hand corner, right? So you can also tinker with it. You can go into row, and for a row, this is known as the main axis, the where the pointer of this screen goes. This is the main axis, and this is the cross axis. For a column, this is the main axis, and this is the cross axis. So we want to align these items in the main axis, right? So inside this row, we can write down main axis alignment dot space around would make something like this. If we don't want that, we can also write down space between, which does something that we want. If we want to add some padding to the left and right, we can wrap this row widget inside a padding widget. So wrap with padding, we'll add a padding to left and right a little. We can also add a little more, 15 units padding, so that it looks something like this. And on clicking plus, it should show up in the cart screen here, right? So that's what we wanted. And we also wanted a list of items, not a single item, right? And we didn't want something to write down again and again. We do not want everything to copy and paste it, right? So what I'll do is I'll just cut this container out until here. Until here, I'll cut it, and let me wait. I'll create a widget for it so that I can reuse. So let me write down again stateful widget, and let me name it item widget. Okay. And inside this item widget, I'll remove this container and paste the container that I just written now. This is not working because we have an error here, because we haven't included anything as a part of body. So inside this, so I can just write down now item widget, which will basically render the same item widget here. So no change. So the things will change in this thing are the name of Apple and the name of Apple and maybe the color. For now, let's make the color same. So let me change this as a variable name. So to include a variable name, you need to go into this extends.state just above the override, write down the variable final string item name. Okay. And you see a red icon. So click on it, click on the think box, and click on create constructor for final fields. Wait, not here. You need to write down here final string item name. Okay, and then click here, create constructor for final field. This will create a constructor like this, and inside this text, you can include the variable, like including a dollar sign, including a flower brackets, and inside this, you need to write down widget dot item name. This will basically initialize the item name. So in this item widget, you can also mention item name, and then the name would be orange. So if I save, orange will come here. If I do banana, banana will come here. So this is pretty simple now. So let me remove this item widget for now, and let me include a column widget which can hold a lot of children and children in here. And let me wait. So let me write down an item widget here, which takes the item name as apple. And let's just copy this, paste 2 to 3 times, and banana, orange. This is how reusing of widgets looks like. Okay, and I think we also need a padding on the top and bottom of this container also. So let's go into the container and click on the think box and just write down rapid padding, and just increase the padding to 10 units so that it looks little good. So this is how it's looking a little bit better, right? So let me decrease the height to 50 maybe. Oh wait, 75 would be a little good. Yeah, right. So this is how it's look like. Are you following? Uh, yeah. So one more thing that we need to make sure is the state management, which is basically when I click here, it should add in the cart screen, right? So for that, let me introduce to the stateful state management in Flutter. So state management can be done with different procedures. The procedure that I am following for this workshop would be provider. You can also follow something known as block pattern or redux pattern or something of that sort. So state provider has three things that you need to know: state change notifier, change notifier provider, and consumer. These are the three basic concepts in provider. So what is change notifier? Change notifier basically contains the state data that needs to be managed across different screens or different widgets. If you are discussing about a single widget, then normal set state will work for the state management of that particular widget. But when we are discussing about something across different widgets, across different screens, then state management solution has to come up, and provider is a good one. So change notifier basically it contains all the state data that needs to be uh, given through to all the widgets that are accessing the data, right? And then comes the change notifier provider. So change notifier provider, what does it do is basically it provides the instance of that change notifier to a particular widget. So let's just say if we want that one widget to access that state value, then I'll wrap that widget with change notifier provider so that that particular widget will get the data. And there's also another thing known as consumer. Consumer is that widget which acts as a listener. It has the data variable, like we'll just as we have mentioned now with a dollar sign, we'll also mention the dollar sign and that state variable that we are storing in change notifier. And this consumer widget acts as a listener for it. It observes the changes of the state from the notifier. So change notifier basically acts as a notifier to consumer. Consumer is a listener. So you can understand what provider looks like. So let's just say we have a widget and we are wrapping that widget with a change notifier provider with a blue color that you can see. And that change notifier provider is an instance, so it has the state values, and there are consumers in between. The consumer is some widgets are wrapped with consumers, right? So consumer will have the access to the data and it can pass it through the widget so that it gets rebuilt if any changes happen. Okay, so we have an item screen and cart screen, right? So we have to be distributing the data, the cart items from both item screen and cart screen. So we'll wrap the my app widget with the change notifier provider. So for that, first we need to create the change notifier, which basically stores all the data for the state that we are working with. So let me create a new file in library known as cart provider dot. The every file has to end with dot. Um, and let me include a class known as cart provider, which extends change notifier. As I've told you, change notifier is something where all this data for the state lies in, right? So the data that we want to include are the cart items. So let me include a list. of string. It will store strings, right? The items are basically strings here. List of string, and let me declare it shopping cart, which is basically an empty array in the beginning of the application, right? When the user opens the app for the first time, there are no items in the shopping cart. And we'll write a function which enables the consumer to add items into this shopping cart. That function would be void add item to the cart to cart. We can name it however we want. And inside this, it will take a string argument of item name, and then inside this we need to add shopping cart. Shopping cart is that list where we are storing the items. Dot add will basically add all the item names, and then we are adding the item name, right? So we'll write down item name and then end. So what does this do? When the consumer here is basically this plus button. When a plus button is clicked, this add item to cart thing should pop up, and the consumer will change something in the change notifier. So we also should notify all the listeners, right? So we'll write down here notify listeners. And on saving, this is basically how the change notifier part of our app looks like. Now we need to add the support to the my app widget, which is a change notifier provider. So let's go into main.dat file and go into my app. Let's not add to let's add to my app, which is basically the material app, right? So I'll add it here. For the material app, I'll wrap with any widget for now, and that widget now would be change notifier. Oh wait, for accessing this provider, I need to add a dependency. So go into pubspec.yaml. In the dependencies, always maintain the indentation. So go beneath the Cupertino icons and then add on provider, and then just save it, so that Flutter will bring the provider dependency from the web. It will download the provider files and get ready our app. So it will take a little time to download for the web. It is done, I guess. So maintain the indentation while writing the dependencies. Go into main.dat. So we need to write down change notifier provider. So this will basically include the provider package, right? This is an error because you haven't finished anything yet. Inside the change notifier provider, this has to create an instance of the change notifier that we have written, which is cart provider, right? So we have to write down uh, create, which is basically used to create an instance. And inside this, we'll write down the context, which is basically, I told you, the unique identification for a widget. And then we need to create an instance of cart provider, right? So we'll write down cart provider. So this will create an instance. So everything is back to normal now. This has created an instance. So change notifier provider is brought up on the my app. So now we need to add the consumers now. Okay, so now let's go back to our app, and let's go into this on pressed thing, right? Icon button. So we need to wrap this icon button with a consumer as shown here. So let me wrap this with a widget known as consumer. So what is this a consumer of? So I need to add something like this. This is a consumer of cart provider. This is a consumer of cart provider. And in this, I need to write down builder, which takes in the first argument as context. The second argument would be some variable that is basically an instance of this cart provider. And the third one would be a something like this. And I should remove this child widget. Now this will work. So this is how it looks like. Let me also paste this in the chat box so that you can use it from there. Icon button, consumer. So this is one of the consumer, each consumer, right? Because we are just reusing the widgets. So inside on pressed, what this has to do, let me use the cart provider. This is basically the instance, this variable name. If I name this variable to be eat, then I'll use eat here. So let me use something like eat dot. We can access all the things, right? So you get it. So let me name it again to cart provider so that we maintain some dignity here. Cart provider dot add item to cart, and then the item name has to be added to the shopping cart, right? What is that name? The name is the widget dot item name, which you are basically showing here. So I'll just copy this widget dot item name and then paste it as a function parameter. That's it. So when you click add item to cart, that basically pops up. But we aren't able to see it in the shopping cart, because shopping cart ka bodies should also be a consumer to access this state of shopping cart, right? So let me go into the shopping cart. Where is the shopping cart screen? And inside this cart screen, after the app bar, let me add a body. And inside this body, there's this something called as list view builder, which basically builds upon all the items that come into that builder into a list view that would be easy for us to see into. Okay, so first let me initialize a consumer inside this thing. Consumer, wait, let me also show shopping cart and the number of items here, so that we can preliminary understand if the items are being added or not. So let me wrap this complete shopping cart scaffold with the consumer. So wrap with widget, and I'll name it consumer of cart provider. And then inside this I have to use a builder. The first would be context, second would be cart provider, third would be a down thing. And let me remove this child. Okay, now inside this shopping cart I'll just use a variable again. So dollar close cart provider dot wait cart provider dot shopping cart. Wait, cart provider dot shopping cart dot this base shopping cart basically gives you the array is known as list in dot length will give you the length of the stuff. So when you click on this, you can see 6. If we hit banana again and click on this, you'll see 7. So something is getting added to the state. So you have understood how the state is being managed, right? So inside this app bar, beneath this app bar, let me add a body. And inside this body, as I've told you, there's a list view builder thing, right? So list view dot builder, and item builder basically means the what has to be built in each item, right? So the first param would be context again, and second param would be index, which is basically for which index what has to be shown. For each index we'll return a text widget. Okay, so basically before that we also need to include some more parameters in list view builder, which would be the item count. How many items are getting added? The item count would be cart provider dot shopping cart dot length, right? And next would be item count. After item count, that's I guess. Wait. Yeah, we are only adding an item count, and inside this text we'll add something like the text would be cart provider dot shopping cart dot no, shopping cart is an array, right? So we can access with index, right? So I guess this should work. Let me go into shopping cart. See, apple, 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 banana. So let me add down an orange, and you can see an orange added here. So we can also make this a little good with adding a container for this text. So this text is basically one aspect, and list view builder is basically repeating the same for everything. So if I add a container for this, and let me add on the comma so that it looks a little good. And decoration, box decoration, color would be colors dot amber accent, would basically make everything same. So let me also add a padding so that it differentiates between each widget. Padding will create something like this. And container size also, height would be height would be 10 units. 10 would be a little small. 30 units. And the width would be, no, will not mention the width. It would be complete whole thing, right? So apple, let me also add a center widget so it comes to the center, right? So it's looking a little good now. I know it's not UI wise, it's not very great. Let me restart this. So one thing, this is called stateful hot reload, which basically on saving this basically reloads, right? So this is stateful hot reload. Whereas this is a stateful hot restart, which basically brings your app to the entry stuff. Like I'll reload this, it'll start to the complete thing where on clicking shopping cart it is 0 because there's nothing added. It brings back to the normalcy. Added an apple, banana, and orange. Banana, orange, and an apple. So 6 items should be there: apple, banana, orange, apple. So you're getting it right. And we can also make a consumer here where we can count the like we can add each item's price: apple 60, banana 40, orange 30, and then we can add the rates added, and we can also add it and we can show it here. This should also be a consumer for that shopping cart. So you can build a complete e-commerce site from this. So I've explained you how to manage the state from this, or else like this is the end. Like you can leave now. Thanks for attending the workshop. If you have any issues, you can PM me directly on Facebook. uh, that's it. I also have added my number on the poster, so you can contact me. Thanks.
And if you like this video, leave a thumbs up below. And if you love the content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. That helps me motivated to do more videos for you guys. Thanks and bye. Signing off, Sai Ankit, Code Studio.